Good afternoon and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I'm so glad that you've chosen to spend a little time with us this afternoon, whether you're watching live or you're watching at a later date. Let's see what I want to tell you about Center for Spiritual Living Ocala as we get started. Welcome. So this is our values. These are the things that are important to us at the Center for Spiritual Living. And you can tell a lot about an organization and a person by what they value. So this is what shows up front for us. These are the things that are important to us as an organization. Spiritual growth and practice. We value love. We value appreciation and community, freedom of expression, creativity, health and wholeness, generosity, and financial well-being. And our mission at CSL Ocala is the same as the larger organization. We are just one of over 400 centers for spiritual living that are located throughout the United States, Canada, and the rest of the world. And our mission as an organization is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. And our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. Our vision is a world that works for everyone. And so we believe that all of us human beings, that we come into this world already perfect, whole, and complete. And somehow along that life journey, we forget it. You know, we have trials and tribulations and things that happen. And so this process, the spiritual path that we are all on, is a process of letting go of what no longer serves us, and ideas and paradigms and things that don't work for us anymore. So that's a big part of what we do here. And so this is our mission and our vision. And today we are having a conversation. We have been talking since, I guess, March, I think. We've been doing the Revolutionary Love Project, which evolved from the book by Valarie called See No Stranger. And every month we're looking at a different topic of this idea of revolutionary love. And this month, interestingly, I think, we are talking about the subject of rage. Now, I think for lots of people, that's probably an unusual topic in a spiritual conversation. But Valarie has broken down her curriculum into three different areas. The first section was talking about revolutionary love for others. The second section, which is where we are right now, is talking about this idea of revolutionary love for our opponents. And then the last part of it, we'll be talking about this idea of revolutionary love for ourselves. So rage is a part of that. Not that we want to rage at people, but that rage is a natural, normal emotion that has information for us. So we're going to be diving into that. We started last week, actually 2 weeks ago, with this conversation, and we're just taking a few different angles on it. I will be joined today by Reverend Ellen Cassey, who will be joining us from Ontario, Canada, and Donna Davis will be praying us in a little bit. But I wanted to share a statement with you from our home office regarding a recent tragedy that was uncovered in Canada. And so I'm going to read it because it actually does go along with what we're discussing today. So let me pull up that statement. This comes from the spiritually motivated social engagement committee, of which I am part. So this was written as an answer to the ethnic and cultural genocide that was uncovered very recently in Canada. So Centers for Spiritual Living Communities worldwide begin the month of June with the weekly theme, Pushed by Pain. All around the world on any given day, the pain is real, visceral, palpable, and it points to the truth that we are living through a time of great transition. Isn't that the truth? Transition is often preceded by pain. We are both the agents of healing transformation and the ones impacted by that transformation. As such, we have an opportunity to lean into the transformational power of our emotions so that we can make our way through to our inherent wholeness. We don't get to bypass it. right? That's the thing, is that we have to go through whatever this time of turmoil is, that we don't get to go around it, under it. We don't get to avoid it. We have to go through it. So this is especially important when we hear about atrocities that have been committed across generations and nations, from the Nazis and the Holocaust, the brutality of the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, South Africa's apartheid, the Tulsa Greenwood massacre, and very recently, the discovery of 215 bodies of Indigenous children in Canada, which exposes the systemic racism and cultural genocide. A discovery of this magnitude feels not only unbelievable, but unbearable. It isn't until we know the depth of our feelings that we can put into practice what our teaching declares, that there is nothing to heal, only truth to be revealed. And so, what is the truth that is wanting to be revealed here? What is the consciousness we're being called to shift? How do we lay the groundwork for a world that indeed does work for all and not for a select few? Let us each ask ourselves and each other these questions and use our dialogues to access the truth and healing power of our teaching. You see, the corollary to being pushed by pain is being pulled by vision. Our faith in the divine in us, as well as our vision of a healthy, loving world, is what strengthens our conviction that beyond the pain lies transformation. As spiritual beings, we're called to develop the capacity to hold pain and to notice the impulse to move too quickly out of it. Truth telling and restorative practices have been a powerful agent of healing and transformation in Australia, Canada, the United States, and colonized African countries, as well as in the Catholicized countries of the Americas. Truth reveals, heals, and prepares the way to recognize and commit to the deep work that lies before us. We invite you to join us in Spiritual Mind Treatment for Our World, and also to learn more about the truth and reconciliation projects across the globe in the resources section that is attached to the document. Let us hold each other in our hearts with compassion as together we traverse the physical and emotional valleys and shadows of unjust death. I think a very, very powerful statement from our home office regarding that finding in Canada. And so I'm going to invite our practitioner, one of our practitioners, Donna Davis, to join us and do a spiritual mind treatment. Hi, Donna.
Hi. Yes,
Hey.
yes. Happy day to everyone. Oh man, my heart is just so heavy. It's so heavy.
Yeah, sad stuff.
Yes, it
Sad
is.
stuff.
Heavy stuff. So let
Yes.
us just connect. Let's just drop down and connect to the oneness. Let's breathe into that heart space, just, allowing the breath to just expand. Expand the lungs, expand the heart chakra. There's only one life source. This life source is here where I am, across the water in Canada, in Ocala, where Reverend Cindy is. It is everywhere. It's in the very depths of the ocean, in the very sky. This life force permeates all things. It is the up, the down, the in, the out, all of it. And everything that happens within our experience is also a part of it. I am connecting to the allness of the one living source, first cause, creative spark, that which says, let there be life, knowing that it exists where I sit right now. I know if it's true for me, it's true for every other person out there, every living thing, every molecule, every atom, All of it is God expressed. And since that is true, then I speak my word knowing that everything that happens in the experience of humanity is joy or the lack of joy, is love or the lack of love. And as we are seeing what seems to be polar opposites, we know that we are experiencing compassion because of that which happened. We know that we're holding our children tighter and expressing more love because of seeing the lack of it. We know that we are learning as a race to move from the generational pain and to move into that which brings us to our highest and best, that which grows us into our highest and best, that which turns away from that which is the lack of love into being love ourselves, because that is the truth. And as we wake up to that truth and our connection with the oneness, as we wake up to that little spark within us that brings us back to the love of the one, back to the connection, we have these deep conversations, and the fire that is the passion that moves us as a race to make change in our world, to protect the vulnerable ones like children or the elderly. It moves us to protect those who are poor. It moves us to feed those who are hungry. It moves us to just infuse love into those that we do not agree with, to address the pain, the fire behind that, the rage that happens when atrocities are happening in our world, that passion and fire. We step into that knowing that this is the thing that cleanses that which we no longer wish to experience, burns it into inertia to take us back to the one, which is that love. And I'm grateful for that love that is always there, always pouring out into us. I am grateful for those who are aware of that love, who seek it, who connect to it, who embody it. I am grateful for each and every soul that is learning through the pain of their own decisions or the pain of others' decisions. I am grateful for all of us. I'm grateful for the thing itself. And I release all my thoughts into the law, knowing that it's already all good and all God. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.
Thank you, Donna, for that beautiful prayer. And thank you for beaming in today from Daytona.
From Flagler Beach.
Flagler Beach. Yes, yes.
We are working, trying to working. We're helping a friend with his house.
Yes, yes. I so appreciate you just taking the time to pray us, and you always do it so beautifully. And so you're not going to be with us for the rest of the broadcast, but we'll
No,
be
I won't
back
be, but
in
I'll be
business.
with you in spirit.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for that beautiful prayer.
Thank you.
You
It's
guys
my pleasure.
have a great time. You know what else I forgot in my I was so focused on this topic and getting it out that I didn't get to say I didn't even acknowledge Father's Day.
Oh
So I want to say
no.
that too. Oh my goodness, it's Father's Day today. And so I just want to give kudos to, well, the fathers certainly in my life, my dad, my husband, my son and son-in-law, who are such great dads, and for everybody who does double duty, like as you have done, right? To be both, poles of parenting for our kids. So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
happy Father's Day to those mothers who were both mother and father. And
Yes.
for those who stepped in for children who didn't have fathers that were present, for whatever reason, there are men that stepped in and
Yeah.
got that So I really, really appreciate every single one of them.
Yes. All right, Donna. Thanks again. And you guys have a fabulous afternoon.
Thank you. You
Love you
too.
much.
Bye,
See ya.
guys.
Bye. Okay, so my companion conversation this afternoon is going to be with my good friend, Reverend Mary Ellen Cassey, who, as I mentioned, lives in Ontario, Canada. And as this topic of rage, if you watched last week, you understand why I asked Mary Ellen to speak on this, because it is something she's intimately familiar with. Quite an amazing story and journey that she has had, and unfortunately has had lots of opportunity to feel that rage and to be able to work through it. And so I just appreciate and admire this woman and her wisdom. And so I'm going to bring her into the stream, and we're going to continue our conversation from last week. Hello, Mary Ellen.
Hello, Reverend Cindy. Good to be here.
Yes, wonderful to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us. What's it doing in Ontario? In Florida, it's rainy and hot and muggy and yuck.
Today is a good day. The sun is shining and it's very pleasant.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, you know, I don't know if you want to give a recap, but you know, let's just kind of pick up where we left off, and if people want to hear more about that story, they can go back and watch the talk from last week, right?
Highly
Suffice to
recommend.
say, you know your way around grief and rage and anger and all of that, and come out on the other side. As I just was looking at you earlier today, you know, we haven't been in person in a while. I'm just looking at how lovely your face is and just how clear you are, and just a wonderful testament to the work internal work that you do, as well as the work that you're doing in the world. Right. Yeah. So thank you for that. So I thought we'd pick up with the conversation as we started last week, talking about this idea of rage. And, you know, I think people are still, you know, surprised to be having a conversation in a spiritual setting about the idea of rage,
Mm-hmm.
as, you know, one of our core emotions, that serves a purpose, that we need to recognize it's here to give us information. You know, so maybe not normalizing it.
Correct.
But yes, normalizing it in terms of, you know, the realization that it's something that we all go through, you know, at some time or another. But of course, as we're saying, rage is spiritual practice. It doesn't mean to take out your rage on people, or to abuse or hurt or act violently with anyone. That's not what we're talking about, right?
For me, Cindy, I have to say, you know, I was petrified of having anger in my body, or not even knowing how to release it for a very, very long time. But now to embrace, and it's true, one would never think of rage as being a spiritual practice, but after working through all that I have, it has become, you know, as a Buddhist, I had to learn to make friends with anger and rage, and to be able to hold it close enough to look at it, to be able to heal. I mean, the woundedness that came out of that was recognized. If I didn't have the rage, I wouldn't have known. It's not even a subtle, but it is an invitation to go within and to find a place to be with it. And you're right, it isn't about, for me anyways, it isn't about lashing out at anyone. It is about looking and asking the question, is how can something so horrible, so horrific, either become my friend or a gateway into wisdom of knowing myself at a deeper, deeper level. And for that, I'm most grateful. My heart broke open enough that I could love myself and love so many other people.
Yeah.
So that's what I would consider is the gateway, or who's knocking at my door, that spiritual opening for an awareness of being able to love at a deep, deep level.
Yeah, I think I use the analogy of the pressure cooker. I don't remember if it was when we were talking about anger, but probably rage, and how, the heat inside of a pressure cooker transforms what's in the pot, right? It comes out something completely different. But you don't just open that pot. You have to let the steam off a little bit at a time. And I think that's a really great metaphor for what happens to us when we have that depth of emotion and feeling, that it can be a transformative force in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Tenderizes us, so to speak, right?
Yes, that's a good word, tenderize.
Yeah, yes. So that's what it does. I want to bring us back to Valarie's quote where she says, "Love is a labor that engages all of our emotions. Joy is the gift of love. Grief is the price we pay for love. And anger is the force that protects that which is loved." So it is a protective force. So I want to ask you, this conversation, what is it that enrages you the most? And it's so interesting that you and I planned this conversation before the situation happened, was uncovered in Canada. And I know that was another thing that brought up a lot of pain and emotion for you. So we'll start with that. What enrages you, Mary Ellen?
Well, you're right. I'm still working through that rage, actually. And you were right when you asked me to join you. This was still a big secret in Canada. This horrific. And I mean, I'm still working. I'm working through it because in order to understand all of this, I know I was asked by a friend to give some words of wisdom. And so I had to take some time out and center myself and breathe and pray. And then I could respond from a calmer place, from how I felt, because my whole body became sickened. I was sickened from within with the news and learning about that these were orders of the day from our government. I mean, there's a lot of violence taking place, tearing down statues and things, and I'd probably be right with them. And so my act, so I couldn't even respond to my friend because I needed to be calm in order to be with the rage I was feeling and to express it. And then to come out the other side, because I think I go from rage to this investigation and this calmness to come out the other side. And so I'm in the process of still digesting it. It's a little bit, it's hard to say it's easy. It's not easy. It's about having great intention and coming from a loving heart for all the people who have been wounded and hurt. And these are children. And of course, the more I read or learn about it, I'm not at forgiveness. I don't know when I will get there, but that is my intention, to work through to get to that place of forgiveness and never forget what these children went through. There's an investigation going on, and I know that there's a big demand. The government has thrown some money to this investigation that will go on. There were supposedly 30 odd residential schools here in Ontario, which just closed. The last one closed in 1996, only 25 years ago. It's horrific. Most of us in Canada, let alone Ontario, are still wrestling with this. Some people can't talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm shocked at that, but I mean, the people that know me have talked to me about it, and I know people who have lived through it, and it's horrific. And there are no words. There are no words as a white woman speaking to them, and that's why I'm not even entering into forgiveness yet. I'm trying to understand how people of the cloth or answered a call to the divine were persuaded by a government who threw money at them, and that took precedence. And the orders of the day was to wipe them out. It was a genocide, an intentional genocide that is not hidden. And that has had me over the top. And then I had to sit. I practiced sitting in silence and trying to understand. When you say pulled by pain and pushed by pain and pulled by vision, I go into saying, just like me. And another part of who I am is, may I see everyone with love and compassion. That is my chant every day when I get up and finish gratitude. May I see everyone in front of me with love and compassion. So helping me understand, listening to the stories of what happened to the children. And of course, the shock, if Americans haven't heard or listened to any of the stories, I guess my biggest ache and heartbreak is that their parents were told that they would be educated and come back with education, etc. And they were greeted with an electric chair. I mean, I'm just so appalled. That is the one that sort of made me sit with all of what we are capable of being and not being.
Yeah.
And they were taken from the ages of 5 to 15. And the things that happened to them, the beatings, etc., are horrific to speak about and to hear it in their own words, because when they came home, they weren't recognizable. They didn't even have a home left. They lost their language, the skills of fishing and hunting, and their language wasn't English. I live on native land here in Hamilton. I have 6 Nations Reserve here. So beyond some of this that I'm sharing, that I'm learning, is that there were 1,300 other schools. 1,300. So we don't have the facts on that. But these other schools were governed or operated supposedly by the government, who people trusted their children to.
Right.
I don't know about the other 1,300. Were they private? Were they run the same way? Were they given the same kind of orders? We don't know yet, but this is part of the investigation. And so I am still holding that spot in my heart where I will be able to transform my feelings of rage and contempt, because this is someone else's behavior. Right. And being ordered to do this, we heard about I grew up knowing about the Holocaust and about the the Nazi regime, etc. And I was ignorant to what was happening in my own country as a child.
You know, I think that's probably true for us here in the States as well, you know. And on top of a deliberate attempt to not look at it, to not look at the atrocities, and then to label anybody who dares to question as unpatriotic or whatever
Yeah.
that may be. I don't want to get to, I don't want to go down that road. But you bring up some, some really good things, some good points, and one of them is that we need to be with that pain, right? The
Yes.
necessity of being with the pain and not glossing over it and not saying, forgive and forget. That's, plus forgiving and forgetting don't go together. I don't know where that phrase ever came about, because you forgive, that does not mean that you forget.
No, exactly.
Yes. So we want to remember these things so that we don't repeat the same behaviors. But this call for revolutionary love, I think, this is why we start with rage and being able to feel our own, because we can't tend to other people. We can't be present with others in the way that we could in a healing capacity if we're still caught up in our own stuff. So it's necessary, I think, to work through, and the fact that you're not ready to say, I forgive this, is your purview, right? As it is everyone's who's been hurt. Not asking people to, to forgive someone who's got their knee on your neck in that moment, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's just an honoring of self, and I'm with you, Mary Ellen. The things that just enrage me the most is anything having to do with kids, mistreatment of children in any way, the forced separation of children at the border. I can't fathom, a civilized society treating children in that way, with all that we know about child psychology and all that we know about trauma, and to actually intentionally inflict that on babies is just unconscionable to me. And so here I am in my own stew, right? That kind of pressure cooker feeling of, being tenderized, or whatever you want to call it, letting off that steam a little bit. But then the rage also is here to give us information.
Yes, yeah, and that's it. Discerning, discerning the truth. I wanted to learn as much as I could so I could understand it. It's not about forgiving yet. It's not about forgetting. It's about help me understand this atrocity, because that's what I named it. I don't have another word. There's no gentle word for this. Wrongdoing.
Yeah.
And then, because I haven't met anybody who might still be alive, how could you do this? How could you? I need to understand that part too. Yeah. And I'm not there. I know Valarie says the first step in loving our opponents is through rage. And so I'm holding on to that as my little play card in the background, like, yes, okay. And I mean love in the agape kind of love, about so I can heal any thoughts. Because I think when you have that rage or anger, it can bring up an awful lot of things for yourself. Yeah. And we might lose even part of ourselves about when something's happened. Yeah. And in this way, I have learned to be with something so horrific and come out the other side as a better person. That's the transformation that I know that can happen. And it isn't just snapping our fingers. It is I'm right now in the process of listening carefully and mindfully. And I'm not sure we're ever going to hear from the people that participated in this. And that's the emptiness about that, other than they were directed.
Right.
And I think, like many of us, you know, when you take on a job and you do what you're told, I get all those roles. But I always want to know, where do I check in? Where do I check in? And these days, I ask my heart.
Yeah.
I ask my heart, do I do any harm in any choices that I make, Cindy? It's like, will this hurt anyone? My decisions, will this harm anybody?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, that's okay. But then I must ask, will this do any harm to me?
Sure.
And if the answer is no, well, then it's fluid. I can go ahead and make the decision.
Well, you know, I think what you're saying, that this idea of allowing emotions to flow, right?
Yes.
And energy in motion. Emotion is energy in motion.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's that thing of feeling the anger, feeling the rage, but it's a lot like holding a hot coal.
Oh, for so long.
You know, you feel it. You don't need to hold it longer than is necessary, you know, is the other thing. So I think having practices, maybe having ways, having as we spoke about grief, you know, earlier, that we need those safe places to be able to express, right? And I think the same thing is true of our rage and our anger, is that it needs expression, right? In order for it to be able to move through. And I'm not just, you know, the example we're talking about right now is so extreme, and it's so out of any of our control. But we all have in our everyday lives opponents.
Yes.
Right. And so I want to bring attention to Valarie's definition of an opponent, because she specifically uses that word opponent and not enemy.
Yes.
So opponent would be any person whose beliefs, words, or actions cause violence, injustice, or harm. Whereas the word enemy implies permanence, and then an opponent is fluid, right? And we can have a whole range of opponents at any given time. Sometimes even the people closest to us are our opponents. Yeah. Right? When my 4-year-old grandsons are pitching a fit or wanting to do what they want to do and not what grandma wants, you know, we become opponents in that moment. So, yeah. So how do we then engage? Well, first of all, what do you think about her definition of opponents?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I have to say, I loved it. I love her work, and I loved her definition. And I really liked the fact that, you know, we have an enemy and we hold on to him till the day we die. So, you know, that used to be a practice. Oh God, they did this to me and I'm going to hate them forever. Well, that can cause their own illness and a whole bunch of other things that come up. And we just hang on to this hate or anger. And one of the things that I liked about her words regarding that is that there seems to be, well, when I say you hang on to it till the day you die, basically, because most people don't give it up or forgive anybody, it's, as she refers to it, as it implies a permanence. And when I read her works and said that it's fluid, I thought, aha, I love it when the light bulb comes on. And it's no different because, you know, in high school, people belong to debate teams. Oh, now there's an example of having an opponent. You have a difference of opinion and you're going to discuss this and that. And at the end of the day, somebody will be a winner, somebody will be different. I thought of people playing tennis. What would we be if we didn't have that usage of the word opponent? Somebody that we're up against, whether it's in a sport or not. And I also liked it because in my past life as a negotiator, I had the freedom in my job at negotiating contracts, labor law. I had the freedom to disagree with the powers that are sitting across the table from me, to agree to disagree, and walk away at the end of the day and have a deal that worked for everybody, for the people and for the employer and the people I represented. And so I really appreciated her, the word fluid, because I think as a negotiator at that time, I always kept an open mind. They were there to do their job. I'm here to do my job. And how can we do that?
Right.
With respect and dignity for people across the table. And knowing at the end of the day, even in bargaining, government rules, because I was a negotiator for different hospitals in Ontario here. So, but her word is magical, to be fluid, to let things flow like a wave. Sometimes there's a big crashing wave, and sometimes ones you can jump up and down in the water and have fun with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's how we show up. It's how we show up as well. I mean, I must say.
Absolutely, right? If you're the common denominator, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Wherever you are in your life with these opponents, it's like everywhere I go, there I am, right? So how am I showing up, and how am I moving conversation further? And I think ultimately the goal, when there is that kind of conflict and pain and people with unmet needs, is to transcend it, right? To bring all of us to a higher level, so that, as you said, we find solutions that work for everyone.
Yes, and be able, in my past life doing that job, we would run into conversations that were difficult to have. And then does that become the roadblock, or is there a way in? Because I always asked, I was so grateful to Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron and some of my mentors that were like, that taught me to use the language. Help me understand. Because what you're asking me in front of my team, I cannot deliver. So help me understand why this is so important. And if this is the deal, I can't sell that. And to be upfront and honest to say that.
Right.
I was very fortunate in a way. Because I struggled having a voice as a girl child, and things that happened to me in the past and many venues. However, I represented a lot of people, and I had to speak and represent them and the people that weren't in that room. And that's how I feel about even all of this that's going on.
Right.
How, Valarie is very clear. And from that rage, I have to tell you, I wanted to write her a letter and say, how can I help? I was so happy with her post about what was happening in Canada. Not the message so much, or the news about it,
Right.
but that it isn't being ignored. It isn't being ignored.
And I want to say kudos to that.
Yes.
That at least, as painful as it is, at least it is being acknowledged and it's being looked at, and hopefully people will do what is necessary to make it right.
Yes, and it was only 2 weeks later. There was a family of 5 Muslims walking and were killed by a 20-year-old man, 4 of them, and 1 child lived. And she spoke about that as well. I mean, once upon a time, I don't know what people thought of Canada, but I mean, violence does not know
It doesn't
boundaries, geography, racism, all of that. I mean, that is just
right.
It doesn't have borders.
Yeah.
It doesn't know boundaries like that. So,
Well,
I try
thank
to
you.
remember myself, Cindy, that sometimes I know when I lived in Toronto, I used to walk by many homeless people, and I, in the morning going to work, and I would say, just like me.
Yeah.
And it was humbling because I thought, that could be me, but just like me, I'm a human being, and I'm sleeping over these air vents that pop up heat, or, there was once upon a time I didn't have food in the house for me or my children. So I understand some things, and we all go through we all have a story, we all have different things happen. And so, but as part of me recognizing that just like me,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
so that fluid she speaks about is very important to me to remember that.
Yes. Who knows? Sometimes we're the ones that are wrong, right? So.
Exactly. And I started this new phrase. I'm not sure where I picked it up from, but I know now when I end or say something to people, when I write, I say, in gratitude with love and tenderness, because what just happened, I committed to loving more. And I thought, somebody said, I don't know how that's possible for you, Mary. And I said, it is. I felt it. I felt my chest open up and my heart open up, that you are to love and like keep expanding. There's no limit.
Right.
And so that's what I can share, what this had done to me. I'm not in all those steps, but I know I must love deeper and more.
That is all of our invitation, isn't it? So, again, our time is done. So we'll be, again, continuing this conversation. There's one more piece to this that we'll be talking about next week. And that is the idea of creating safe containers for people to be able to express this, and the idea of divine rage. So so be thinking about that. You'll join us for that one, I'm sure. Just finish out this whole month with us would be lovely. And and I thank you again for sharing your story and your perspective, and broadening our perspective a little bit. We here in the United States kind of think that we're the center of the universe, and so I love broadening our horizons and our perspective, and we see the universality of all of us, don't we?
Yes. And for me, as you know, well, if anybody knows anything with trauma and things like that, that you do need a safe container. And I pray the land. That's my phrase for gardening. I have to go and dig and use all that energy to turn the earth over, and then to be, because to me, that's being with Mother Earth as well. And so that helps calm me in order to be with what is in front of me.
Yes, thanks
Sure,
for
people
sharing
have
that.
their own little thing they do.
Yes, thank you. So we will explore that a little bit deeper next week. And thank you again for joining us. Let's see. Oh, we had Teresa Slusher joined us today, and some other folks here. Some names I recognize, some names I don't. So see if there's any specific questions. Maybe people can post them for next week. But thank you again, Mary Ellen.
Thank you very much. Blessings.
Yes, blessings. Oh, and Richard just put in the Zoom chat afterward. Are you available this week to chat with
Sure.
me?
I don't know how to find that yet on this, but
We'll send you the link. How's that?
perfect. Okay. Thanks.
You can join us after the conversation on
Okay.
Zoom, and as well as anybody else who wants to join us and have a deeper dive into this conversation and how it applies to your lives personally. So thank you, Mary Ellen, and we'll see you on Zoom and next week.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you, my dear. So a challenging topic, and difficult, kind of heavy conversation, but necessary. I think there is so much pain in this world over injustice and just the regular stuff of life, right? The things that happen to people as they, lose jobs, or people get sick, or they die, or whatever, all of that grieving. And so often grief and anger, we talked about them being flip sides of the same coin. So we're not about bypass. Sorry, there's no way around these things. To deny them only works for so long. At some point, we have to acknowledge the very real presence of that pain, and that is the way that we work through it. So I thank you for joining us for this conversation, and for your willingness to step into that pain, whether it's grief for you or it's anger or rage, whatever that might be. I just thank you for your courage for stepping into it, because there are lots of people that are turning a blind eye. Like, I don't see that. I'm not going to think about it. I don't read the newspaper. I don't watch the news. And you can get by that way, but we're not going to create a world that works for everyone unless we actually look at what is working and what is not, and allow our emotions to be that GPS that tells us where we are. If these things anger you, if they hurt you, there's a reason for that, and I would encourage you to look at it, and then use your gifts as you have them, to be able to remedy those situations. So I thank you for joining us. So it's time for our gifts and tithes. And I want to thank everybody who helps support the center, whether you're supporting the center through your efforts, because we have lots of people that come and help with cleanup efforts and things like that. In fact, we're having cleanup days this Tuesday and Wednesday as we prepare for a wedding this weekend, and for the Aura Clubhouse to come join our space. So if you have time Tuesday or Wednesday, you're in the area and can come help out with the cleanup effort, we would greatly appreciate that. And we would greatly appreciate your financial support for the center. We have some repairs that need to be made. We're trying to get this word out in a bigger way, and all of those things take money. So if you can, give us a gift, we greatly appreciate that. We have easy ways for people to do that. Scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, you'll see a telephone number, and that is for folks to text to tithe. If you have a smartphone, you text that number, 352-320-5110, and you put in the amount of money that you would like to donate to the center, and it goes right from your account into ours once it's set up. It's very easy. Or you can go to our website on PayPal at cslocala.org/donate. And so this is our affirmation. I invite you to make it your own. Just hold your hand over your chest, over your heart, and I will say these words and you can make them yours. It is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am grateful. And yes, I am blessed. I am blessed and I am grateful to be part of this wonderful spiritual community. I'm blessed to have wonderful men in my life who are great fathers, who are contributing to creating that world that works for everyone, just as they raise their children. And so kudos to all of you involved, dads out there. And let's see, I think that takes us to our closing prayer. I want to remind you that we are meeting in person again. Right now it's once a month. It is a super second Sunday. So our next Sunday will be July 11th. And we are meeting at the Showcase Event Center in downtown Ocala, formerly known as the Ocala Ballroom. So I encourage you to join us if you can. And if you're too far away to join us, put us on your list when you're visiting Ocala, but do send us lots of love and support as you can. And so the prayer for protection, I invite you to make this your own as well. This comes from our sister organization, Unity, and a beautiful philosopher, writer named James Dillett Freeman. And it goes like this. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. All is well. And I just pray as we each go through our respective life experience, that any challenges turn into stepping stones to your greater success. And I just acknowledge and affirm that each one listening, each one within the sound of my voice, has absolutely everything they need to get through this next week, to get through your challenges, to live your best and most wonderful life. And so I thank you for joining us and hope you can join us on Zoom or next week for our next broadcast. Love and blessings and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Have a great Sunday afternoon. Bye-bye.